We got more breaking news in a CBS Sports HQ. Notre Dame head coach Brian Kelly is expected to be the next head coach at LSU. This comes from multiple reports. Kelly has spent the last 12 seasons as the head coach of the Irish and leaves the program in a far better place than he found it, amassing a 106-39 record, including 2 trips to the college football playoff. But now Kelly is calling Baton Rouge. For more on the latest head coaching news, we say hello to college football writers Chip Patterson and Barrett Sallee. Gentlemen, another shoe falls, and it's that of Brian Kelly this time, the longtime ND headman heading to LSU. Lots to unpack here. Chip, I'll go your way first. Your initial thought is what?
That this comes right on the back of Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma to go to USC. I mean, the days of coaches necessarily not being willing to jump from one power to another are clearly coming to an end. And maybe as we see more player movement with the transfer portal and the one-time transfer rule, maybe that is emboldening some of these coaches. We also have an LSU job that I believe is one of the 5 best in the country. And Brian Kelly, after recently becoming the winningest coach in Fighting Irish history, he reaches the college football playoff 2 times. I'm not going to say that what else is there to accomplish, but if the competitor in Brian Kelly is looking around at the landscape and looking at Notre Dame, he could probably be very comfortable. Heck, I predicted that he would finish his coaching career at Notre Dame, but clearly the competitor in him or other reasons have really driven him to try to take LSU, a job where you can win national championships, and to try to live up to what we would expect from a top 10 coach, maybe even top 5 in all of the Power 5, taking on a school with the resources and the recruiting prowess like LSU. Do I think it's a immediate fit? No, it doesn't make sense to me, but I do know that the coaching acumen is there for Kelly to be able to succeed if given the power to do so at LSU. So I'm fascinated to see where this goes.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily totally surprised, Chip. I mean, we heard Brian Kelly during the playoff a couple years ago kind of reference or at least insinuate that the glass ceiling at Notre Dame was not just glass. You couldn't break through it. It was more like a brick wall. And I think the competitor in him, we've all seen him get all red-faced on the sideline, although not as much recently. But he is a competitor. And at LSU, he's going to have better facilities. He's going to have better support. He's going to have a better recruiting base, like you said. And you're going to have a chance to win a national championship. I think he looks at this program at Notre Dame and thinks, yeah, I could get a top 7, top 10 recruiting class, but it's not Georgia. It's not Alabama. It's not Clemson. It's not Ohio State. And yeah, you can get through an independent schedule undefeated. He's done that before. But when he gets to the playoff, he gets smoked because he does not have the Jimmies and the Joes. I don't care what division it is. I don't care what conference it is. LSU's going to get the Jimmies and the Joes. He can open that door to the complex, and 5 stars will just start waltzing right on in. And because of that, I think the combination of players and his coaching acumen will make this LSU program the juggernaut that it really should have been for a long time.
I want to dig a little deeper here on that ceiling at Notre Dame, because you talk about this program and what Brian Kelly has made and turned it into, and it is one of the recruiting powerhouses across the nation right now. They've been playing football at Notre Dame since 1887. This is, as Chip said, the winningest coach in the history of that program. More than Ara Parseghian, more than Lou Holtz, more than Knute Rockne. Those guys have statues outside of Notre Dame Stadium, and the only thing holding Brian Kelly back from that statue is 1 more win or 2 more wins in terms of the college football playoff. What is that ceiling, Chip, if it isn't one that's self-imposed?
For Notre Dame, in terms of what your success can be, it is absolutely on the recruiting trail. And the thing that is so interesting is the reworking of Notre Dame after the absolute embarrassment that was the 4-8 season. It included 2 areas that were very important, and one of them was recruiting. The other was strength and conditioning, because the thing that has made the modern Notre Dame football program so successful is that they get old and they stay old, they develop well, and they turn these players who might arrive a little bit undersized and a little bit raw into the Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And sometimes it takes place over a 3-year, 4-year, maybe even 5-year timetable because of that time it takes to really build up your body. But again, the recruiting for Notre Dame is also evaluation, which is why I would say that as we look ahead to who the next Notre Dame coach is going to be, evaluation is very, very important, because you are recruiting with different standards than Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. And so if you're still going to wind up with top 7, top 10 type classes, then you need to be able to also have in those classes the three-star guy that is going to develop into an NFL draft pick. I mean, that is what they've shown. So recruiting and evaluation, strength and conditioning, all the rest of those things, I think when it comes to game day, Notre Dame has been delivering at a high level. That is how you break through any ceiling. That is how you close the gaps with the best programs in college football.
Yeah, and LSU's got that stuff. And that's why that's the draw of LSU, is that they've already got the facilities. The strength and conditioning program is set in stone, whether Brian Kelly brings in his guys or he keeps LSU's guys or has some combination of the two. The strength and conditioning is mandatory in the SEC. And LSU not only provides the facilities and the resources, it provides the coaching staff as well. And I think all this comes down to money in reality. And it's not necessarily his paycheck. But Notre Dame, in terms of its TV contract, yeah, it's a loan, but in reality, it's not as much as the SEC teams are getting, and surely not close to what they'll be getting when Texas and Oklahoma get in. So that in the future, it's just going to be even harder for Notre Dame. And then on top of that, the proposal for the expanded college football playoff, even though we don't necessarily think it's going to be the exact same way, but Notre Dame couldn't get a top 4 spot. They could get a home game, but they couldn't get a top 4 spot based on their independence, and I think that played into it too.
Yeah, Barrett, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It comes down to dollars and cents, and I'm sure when we do see these figures, we'll all collectively clutch our pearls at how big of a number it is for Kelly at LSU. But recruiting now is a national game, and it's not just recruiting your backyard, it's recruiting the whole country. There's a guy out on the West Coast now that's pretty darn good at it. We'll see what Kelly can do here with an SEC schedule and some SEC competition on that recruiting trail as well. But we are seeing a theme here, back to the idea of dollars and cents, of coaches that are going to slightly greener pastures to go chase something else somewhere else. And these are not just coaches. These are guys taking their teams to the college football playoff, creating Heisman Award winners. Do you have any concern, Barrett, when it comes to the fluidity in college football right now, the transfer portal, these big name coaches changing seats year after year? Does that concern you at all?
No, not really. I mean, that's just evolving with the times, and that's just the way things are going to be. And honestly, when you look at player movement, if the players can move as freely as they can now, coaches should be able to. Coaches were the ones that got that conversation started because they were easily swayed in one direction or another. Now, we haven't seen this big program to big program move all that much, but when you look at what these individual coaches desire, right? Lincoln Riley wants a challenge at USC. He felt the ceiling was where it was at Oklahoma, but he feels like he can revitalize a proud program. Brian Kelly wants to prove his way in the SEC, something that Lincoln Riley didn't want to do. So I think right now, if you've earned your way to be a top 5, top 10 coach, and somebody else comes along and wants to throw a ton of money at you, and it fits, whether it's your coaching needs or your family's needs or whatever, you can do that, and no one's going to fault you for it, because if it's a better job for you and you can explain why, then what's the problem?
Cedric the Entertainer has a great bit about how if you see someone running, you just start to run. You don't take time to ask them why they're running. You just run, and then after you're done running, you say, what were we running for? And I think that all of college athletics is going through that right now. We had the pandemic. We had the NCAA getting its you-know-what kicked in the Supreme Court. We have name, image, and likeness come up. We've got the one-time transfer rule. We've got college football playoff expansion. Texas and Oklahoma are leaving in the middle of the night, not telling anyone, and going to the SEC. Everyone is running. And so the idea that a head coach might be swayed by, greener pastures or just a new opportunity, it just feels like a time where all of college sports is shifting. And I just think that is a motivating factor for a lot of the very quick snap decisions that are made. And history is filled with snap decisions. Now we just get to find out what the results of those are going to be. And
gentlemen, if you're going to run somewhere, always run to the money. Brian Kelly from Grand Valley State to the Southeastern Conference, the new head man at LSU. Fantastic stuff as always, gentlemen. All right, more on this coming. Some big-time news out of the college ranks. Day after day, the coaching carousel rolls on. Brian Kelly headed to LSU. More with our Dennis Dodd next on CBS Sports HQ.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.